Hello, and how are you this lovely Tuesday afternoon or whenever you happen to be watching it? It is a YouTube video after all. Today we're going to be covering the ground type in Pokemon in our tier list, and it is a surprisingly less populous type than I expected, at least for primary ground types. There are a handful more secondary ground types, but even then, not that many. So this is going to be a much shorter tier list than the ones we've had for the past couple weeks, which I am thankful for because it makes it a lot easier for me to get to the end without getting tired. But without any further ado, let's jump into the ground types, and starting off with Sandslash. I like Sandslash a lot. I think Sandshrew is cute. I like that Sandslash sort of like borrows elements from like moles and hedgehogs, and it's not necessarily over designed, but I do think it has like a hair too much going on. But like overall, I would say it's very competent. Like it's got a lot of good, maybe a little bit too much good going on. But yeah, it looks sharp and jagged. It looks like it's very defensive in nature, and it also looks like it could slash you back. Sandslash, as the name might imply. Yeah, I think on the whole, it's not too great. I think it's maybe got a little bit too much going on, and Sandshrew is sort of basic, but Sandslash is great. Cool, solid B tier for me. Dugtrio. It's so hard to talk about Dugtrio and Diglett by extension because it's just so simple. And like obviously there's all of the memes about like what does Diglett and Dugtrio look like underneath the ground? And there have been a lot of times where like Pokemon animations have either had to specially account for Diglett's design, or they just like artificially cut the model off on the bottom if you like glitch your way into making the animations play for Diglett. So like it's so hard to talk about because like from a sort of objective standpoint, there's barely any design here. But I think it works really well for me just because of the way it's been memed over time. And like, say what you will, Diglett is very cute if nothing else. Like it embodies like all of the things in our brain that fire off the cute hormones or whatever. Like it's just so round and small and precious. And then Dugtrio is just 3 of them, which I know a lot of people complain about in Gen 1, but I don't care. I like Dugtrio. I like Diglett. I like Dugtrio. Like they are so simple that it feels like wrong to put them in S tier, but I feel like because of my own emotional attachment to them, I couldn't in good conscience put them any lower than S tier. Marowak is a very interesting concept. It's kind of a weird lore-breaking concept because like Cubone wears the skull of its dead mother, and then it evolves into Marowak, and then it has more Cubones, and the Cubones wear the skull of the dead mother. Something's not adding up here. I know that Pokedex lore is not to be taken completely literally and seriously, but it creates that sort of like continuity question, like which came first, the Cubone or the mother's skull? But all that being said, a complete tangent. I think like as a Pokemon design, it's very strong in that like it's sort of like vaguely dinosaur lizard-ish, but it's not the sort of thing that you really see in any other media. Like I know that like wearing a skull as a helmet is a thing in a lot of other places, but like as for like a monster design, I feel like the very strong like skull and bone theme for an animal isn't super a thing, broadly speaking. And like it's unique and original and very like distinctly Pokemon to me, in a way that I think works really well. The continuity question of Cubone and its mother's skull it's a can of worms that I'm not prepared to open up at this time, but it's Donphan. I was thinking about this tier list earlier after I decided on ground type, and Donphan is one of those Pokemon that like I like it. I think that both Phanpy and Donphan are really strong designs. Elephants are great, obviously, and the fact that Donphan, it can like basically turn into a giant tire tread, and then it can roll around and do all that stuff. It's something that you see a lot in the anime. But looking at it, like, I feel like it should probably be steel type or normal type. Like, I look at it and I don't necessarily think ground type, whereas like I think cars are made of metal, so Donphan should probably be steel type, right? Or if you want to go a different route, like tires are made of rubber, and like rubber is kind of associated with a handful of normal types so far. So I don't know. This is not a dig against Donphan necessarily, and I think that making it steel type might have been like theoretically like making it compete with Steelix, or like they hadn't had a pure steel type yet, so maybe they like didn't think that pure steel was like something that they wanted to do moving forward. I don't know why they landed on ground type for this thing. But all that being said, I like Donphan. I think it's a good design. I like the tire element. Was it Donphan that appeared in the first Pokemon movie that was like before the Gen 2 games came out? I'm pretty sure it was Donphan that Ash battled a trainer that had a Donphan, and that was like a whole thing in the first movie. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this design. I guess when I was really thinking about Donphan, I was just like, I feel like Steel type might have been a better fit for it, but the design on the whole, I am a fan. Sorry, weird technical difficulties. My camera stopped working for a second. We were getting into Flygon. Flygon is, I know, a very, very popular design. It was the first ground dragon type, which, now it's shared by 2 other Pokemon, but at the time it was unique. I'm not very familiar with the particular animal in real life that the evolutionary line is based off of, but like it's a really cool sort of interesting transition from Trapinch to Vibrava, and then Vibrava to Flygon is more straightforward. But the reason that I'm not going to put it in S tier, I'm only going to put it in A tier, is kind of a personal gripe, in that one of the things that I want most is a bug and dragon type Pokemon. And Flygon, to me, is the perfect possibility. Like, this is what a bug and dragon type, I think, should look like. But it's ground and dragon instead of bug and dragon. So, like, very personal gripe, very awkward artificial bias. But, like, the design on the whole works. I love the green. I think that with a lot of ground type Pokemon, there's that, drive for, like, sort of like dark earthy tones, and so having a ground type that's just like vibrant, bright orange and bright green when it evolves is very fun and very like contrasting to what you might consider the sort of standard ground type design, because up until this point we've got a sea of brown and gray, which works. But, I'm always a big fan of vibrancy in design, especially when it breaks from like what you could consider the standard idea of what a type of Pokemon should look like. Moving forward to Claydol, I think that Claydol is a really fun and strong concept. I found it really creepy as a kid. I didn't like it one bit. But in my old age, I have come to appreciate what it's going for a lot more. I like the fact that its arms are like detached parts of its body that it moves around psychically. I like that Baltoy is just a spinning top as a Pokemon. I think it is a better version of a spinning top than Hitmontop. Hitmontop is weird, but this isn't a fighting type tier list. This is a ground type tier list. And yeah, I think that Baltoy works really, really well as sort of a spinning top Pokemon. It's like a clay top, and then Claydol is like more like a clay golem, kind of, so to speak. And the psychic typing is a fun extra bonus for it. And the fact that it is solid black with these bright primary color accents, I think works a lot better for me than if it stayed brown from Baltoy. I think that the shift to black and then with the bright accents, I think was a really cool color design, strong choice on the part of the Gen 3 Pokemon designers. I have established myself over the course of making these tier lists as a staunch anti-box legendary person. And Gen 3, I think, is the last one that had like definitively good box legendaries. Like, I think that Groudon and Kyogre will only be mentioned insofar as it plays against Groudon, and Rayquaza similarly. I think that they share a very strong sort of trio element to them without like stepping on each other's toes. You know, they have those like black veins essentially that run throughout their whole body that, you know, glow when they're, you know, exerting their power. And there's the you know, the red and blue interplay between Groudon and Kyogre, and there's, you know, Rayquaza being the thing that stands above both of them. You know, strong concepts all around. You know, the very bright saturated red color. The one thing that I don't necessarily love about Groudon, and the reason that I'm torn between B and C tier, it's just so spiky and jagged. Like, if it weren't for the extra spikes that it had on like the side of its neck and the side of its body, like if it were just the claws on its hands and on its feet, like if it didn't have the other gray spikes on it, I think I would like it a lot more. I don't have the Photoshop skills to make that a reality, but I think those extra spikes are just a little bit too much. Maybe take off the spikes and shorten the neck a little bit just so it doesn't look so awkward and dangly. And I think it would be a much stronger design for me personally. But I think, because like in nature, horns and spikes like that are a defensive trait. So like, it's something that like an herbivore would have to be able to ward off predators. Think, you know, hedgehogs, think goats with their huge horns and rhinos with their huge horns. Like, they're not designed for offense, they're designed for defense. And Groudon looks like a very aggressive design, so the presence of those very like defensive, awkward spikes strikes me as strange, because it looks like it's supposed to be predatorial, but it ends up being more like defensive and prey-like by the addition of the defensive spikes. So yeah, I think just tighten up the neck and remove the side spikes. It would be a lot better. Very long rant. As box legendaries go, Groudon and its brethren were probably the last ones that I would say are definitively strong as a whole, and from then on it gets a little bit messier. Hippowdon is one that I like a lot. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the gender difference, how they're essentially like a complete palette swap from each other. It's fun, you know. I like unobtrusive but cute and clever gender differences. Wobbuffet obviously is my favorite gender difference, but I like when there's not necessarily a mechanical difference with them. It's just a really strong, striking visual difference that makes it like feel more worth it to use one gender over the other rather than just like a personal preference or random luck. If you only liked using female Hippowdon because you think it just looks better to you, then that is something that I would completely understand, and vice versa. If you think that male Hippowdon just looks better and you only used it, I would completely understand that. And, you know, even beyond that, you know, I love hippos. It was recently my wife's birthday and we went to the zoo, and one of the biggest things that she wanted to see was there was a pygmy hippo at the zoo, and so we got to see that, you know, waddling around and hanging out in the water and all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool animals in real life. I'm terrified of them. If I ever like was in the same space as a hippo, like it could access me, I would probably die very quickly, because they're dangerous things. Like, they're very strong and they're massive. And I also, it's kind of a funny thing. I love that the official artwork for Hippowdon has all of the sand spilling off of it. I don't know why that's the case, but it sure does, huh? Rhyperior. Rhyperior is another Gen 4 evolution, and like Gen 4 cross-generational evolutions were largely in part to give old Pokemon that needed a little bit of an extra statistical boost, the boost that they needed, and like a stronger design moving forward. And Rhydon was a really weird pick for that. Like Rhydon, I don't think people were clamoring for a Rhydon evolution. Like, it wasn't very good, but that was just by virtue of it not having a very good type. And like, don't get me wrong, Rhyperior definitely provides a lot of statistical advantages over Rhydon, but as a design, it just strikes me as a complete downgrade. Like, first of all, I don't even super strong see the connection there. Like, it bears some vague resemblance in like the drill horn and the general body shape, but beyond that, they just have like a completely different design and shape language to me. And I don't like Rhyperior as a design. Obviously, statistically, it's much stronger than Rhydon. It gave it like more viability, but the fact that it's rock and ground, or ground and rock type, I guess I should say. The fact that it's ground and rock type is ultimately going to be a very strong hindrance because there are water types everywhere, and it's just not going to have a good time against them. But yeah, I think I like Rhyhorn and Rhydon. I don't like Rhyperior at all. Rhydon taken on its own would probably be like a B tier, maybe very, very low A tier, but I don't like Rhyperior. It's really not for me. But on the flip side, Gliscor is a perfect Gen 4 cross-generational evolution. It does everything you want them to do. You know, it builds off of the design language established by Gligar, and it takes it in sort of a fun and interesting direction, sort of plays up the scorpion type element of it, but also, you know, the bat wings. It's kind of an odd design. I'm not familiar with if there are any real life scorpions or bats that share all of these characteristics, but like it is in my opinion one of the best Gen 4 evolutions of a pre-existing Pokemon. I think that it gave, you know, the competitive viability aspect in spades. You know, Gliscor is a very strong Pokemon, but it also, you know, builds off of the design in a fun and interesting way. It's not like Rhyperior where it's just like, was anyone asking for this, and is this really a design improvement? Like, couldn't you have just buffed Rhydon's stats or given it a new ability instead of doing whatever this is? Yeah, sorry, not to keep ragging on Rhyperior. This is about why Gliscor is good. And purple is a great color, underutilized color in the Pokemon world, if you ask me. You know, it breaks from a lot of the like brown and gray monochrome of ground types by having that sort of unique palette and the shock of red in its joints and its ears. Lot to like about it. Very, very good design in my book. Excadrill is largely really popular because it's so strong, but also like it's a good enough design. The one quibble I would give is its fedora visor shredder helmet thingy. I don't understand it. If it were at least like a little bit shorter, like if it were more of just like a visor rather than like a what's that hairstyle called where it's like pompadour. It's kind of like a pompadour, but it's a jagged drill device. It's, you know, it's a little bit confused in that regard, but like I think Excadrill is a popular Pokemon for a reason. I like the shocks of red. The red on Excadrill is kind of like a better version of Zangoose to me. It doesn't look so edgy and like battle damaged. It just looks like, oh yeah, that looks like it could be a natural marking on an animal. And yeah, the weird pompadour drill visor is like the only thing that I would say I don't super love about the design. But, you know, the big metal claws on its hands, and, you know, I think that Drillbur is a very goofy design, and it's funny in like a cute way. Lot of good to say about the line as a whole. Crocodile, I love the red. If you've ever seen Crocodile's shiny form, it is very cursed. They should have kept the eye area black, even if they changed the rest of the color palette. And they changed it to like bright yellow, and it's so awkward and creepy looking. It just doesn't work without the eyes being that particular color. But yeah, like the base design obviously is what we're talking about, and you know the ground and then dark type. You know, it strikes me as a very like, you know, I look at it and it's got that personality of like, you know, it's strong in a straightforward fight, but it's also, you look at it and it's like, that thing's not afraid to play dirty. That thing will like, you know, come at me from the side when I'm not expecting it. It'll, you know, throw sand in my eyes. It'll spit on my shoes and tell me that my mom doesn't love me. You know, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, you're a villain, but also a ground type, you know, the land gator sort of thing. I have made a few controversial opinions over the past couple of videos, but Stunfisk is an S tier for me because of the audacity of the design. Like, Diglett and Dugtrio are simple in like a cute and endearing way. Stunfisk is a sin against humanity in a cute and endearing way. I remember the first time I saw the 3D model, I was like, oh, it really is just flat, huh? It was very funny to me when I first saw the 3D model, and the dumb little beak and its 1,000-yard stare in its eyes. I'm very attached to this thing. If you don't share my proclivity for these kind of like sort of cursed but like ultimately kind of cute and kind of funny designs, then you're not gonna like what I have to say about Stunfisk. But for me, Stunfisk is an S tier. It's near and dear to my little old heart. Golurk is a the fact that Golurk can learn fly makes me want to give it S tier in and of itself, but you know, it's, you know, as a clay golem that's been possessed by a ghost. Children are screaming in the background. You know, it is a possessed golem. I think Golett is, you know, very, very small and cute. This strikes me as something that probably could have been a one-off. I don't know if having an evolutionary line was particularly necessary, in my opinion. But, you know, the design concept I think is a lot of fun. I think is really strong. The fact that it's like a clay golem, but it's also like a turbo flying mecha in the anime tradition. I like it. I think it's a really fun and strong design concept. I just think it's a little bit too much for me personally. I like it, but it could do a little bit less. It could dial it back a little bit, and I'd be more into it, I think, as compared to its current iteration. Landorus, I don't like the forces of nature. I think that they're all... If all of them were just their Therian form, I think I would like them a lot more. But it's the fact that their incarnate form is just a palette swap with a different tail, and it's the Uxie Mesprit Azelf problem, where it's just like it's the same Pokemon but 3 now 4 times. Enamorus is different, but it is not different in a better way. But yeah, I just really don't like this trio or quartet, I guess now, and not for me. I think that for the Therian forms, I think that Landorus has the best Therian form out of all of them. And I think even its like incarnate form is a hair better than the others. I just have a very strong negative feeling towards this set of legendary Pokemon as a whole. They're just very much not for me. Mudsdale is, I think it's cool. I think it's a horse. You know, it strikes me as very like burly and sturdy and rough and rugged. But beyond being like strong, like looking tough and durable, I don't know if it really does enough to not just be like horse. It is horse. it is horse, and that is all that it is. And it's kind of got like a little bit of like a 1980s, 1990s leg warmer thing going on, where you would wear those to like jazzercise or whatever. And like it's got a lot of interesting elements to it. I just think that fundamentally it's a horse, and I expect more than that out of Gen 7 designs. Like by the time we get to Gen 7, I expect you to be doing something really, really interesting, even if you're using a relatively basic animal. Because like up until this point, like Gen 1 were mostly like literal animals, but by the time we get to say, Gen 5, we've got Crocodile, who's, this very like angry, aggressive, backhanded type of crocodile. We've got Excadrill, which is like a mole, but it also has, metal drill hands. Stunfisk is cursed. So like when Gen 7 comes around, it's just like, oh, there's this new Pokemon Mudsdale, and it's just kind of a very literal horse, and Mudbray is kind of a very literal donkey. I look at it and it's like, you could do a little something different, maybe a little more intrigue, a little more character to it. But it just strikes me as very basic. It's not bad. And I like the orange rather than just being like another shade of brown. I think makes it like a little bit better for me. But yeah, it's a horse. And finally, we are at, I don't remember if this is Silicobra or Sandaconda, but I don't feel like looking it up right now, so I'm just going to call it Sandsnake. Sandsnake it's good, it's solid. Insofar as it is a snake, it's the way that it coils up that makes it like goofy, but also interesting to me. Like, I know I just ragged on Mudsdale for being a very literal horse, but like, I think that Sandsnake is better because like it does interesting stuff with the snake concept. Like the fact that it's coiled up like a cornucopia essentially, or like a creamhorn, I guess, if you wanted to go like the very British route, as Galar is based off of England. And it does interesting stuff with the basic idea of snake. And like we've had snakes before that are much more like literal and much more straightforward, but Sandsnake does interesting stuff with the idea of a snake. And it's just the look on its face. Like it's just so sick of being here. It's so tired and it just doesn't want to deal with it. I think it's funny. I think it's cute. And as the only primary ground type of Gen 8, I think we could be doing a lot worse. So yeah, that completes the tier list. Ground type on the whole, pretty solid primary type. There's only one that I really hate, and one that I could do without, but I like its other evolutions. But on the whole, very cool, very strong. Ground isn't a type that I'm necessarily like really attached to personally, but looking at all the designs, there ain't nothing wrong with any of them. There's only something wrong with one or two of them. But yeah, no real complaints on the whole. Ground types are cool. If ground is your favorite type, I understand. I think that most of the designs are pretty neat. If you got it to this point in this video, thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a lovely time. Sorry about the weird technical difficulties with the camera. I hope you're excited to see more of these type tier lists. I think I'm close to halfway. I don't know how many I've made up until this point. I think this will be my 6th, maybe 7th. So we're about a third, closer to halfway done with the types. So I hope you're looking forward to more. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed and you got this far and you're excited to see what I have to say about the subsequent types. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.